I never imagined my own family could betray me in such a cruel public way. But the memory is burned into me as sharp as a knife. Church smelled faintly of lilies and old wood polish, that mix of tradition and formality that usually comforts me, but that day it felt suffocating. The stained glass windows filtered sunlight into soft patterns across the aisle, and rows of my relatives sat stiffly in polished wooden pews, whispering about the bride's big moment. Beside me, my 7-year-old son Mikey held my hand tightly. He has similar-functioning autism. That means the world often overwhelms him, but also that he can find joy in the smallest things. He was smiling wide, the kind of instant smile that lights up his whole face. His fingers squeezed mine rhythmically, his silent way of telling me, "I'm happy, Daddy, I'm safe here." I thought we were. Then my cousin Vanessa's voice cracked through the air like glass shattering. "Excuse me, what is he doing here?" The music stopped, heads turned. The entire rehearsal froze as every pair of eyes locked onto us. For a split second, I thought maybe she was talking about someone else, but then I realized she was pointing directly at Mikey. My heart dropped, Mikey's smile faltered, though he didn't quite understand. He thought she was joking, maybe playing a game. His hands started to flap gently, his way of self-soothing. I wanted to shield him, scoop him up and carry him out, but my body froze under the weight of dozens of eyes. Vanessa's white rehearsal dress rustled as she stomped forward, her voice screeching. "I thought you told him not to come," she snapped at her perfectly manicured finger stabbing toward my son like he was an intruder. "Why would you bring him to MY rehearsal?" The whispers spread like wildfire through the crowd. I caught sight of a few relatives exchanging disgusted glances, not at Vanessa, but at me, as if I'd committed some unforgivable offense by bringing my child. Mikey blinked up at me confused, his voice was small, trembling. "Daddy, why is she yelling?" I swallowed hard, forcing myself to keep calm. "It's okay, buddy, just stay with me." But inside, I was breaking. The humiliation was unbearable, not because Vanessa was lashing out at me, but because she was doing it in front of Mikey, in front of everyone. She was stripping my son of his dignity, reducing him to spectacle. And no one stopped her. Her looked but said nothing. Her parents, my aunt and uncle, sat with their arms crossed, lips tight. A handful of guests frowned disapprovingly at Vanessa, but most nodded silently in agreement as if they too thought Mikey shouldn't be there. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call her out for the cruel hypocrite she was. A part of me even imagined spitting out the ugliest words I could muster, telling her she'd die alone in her bitterness, that one day people would dance on her grave. But then I looked at Mikey, still trying to hold his smile together, tears welling up in his eyes. I wouldn't, I had to be better for him. So I squeezed his hand, lifted my chin, and whispered, "We're leaving, buddy, let's go home." We walked out together, the heavy church doors slamming shut behind us. Outside, the cool evening air hit us, sharp and damp with the smell of rain. Mikey broke down instantly, his small body racked with sobs. "Daddy, why was she so mean to you? Did you do something bad?" That broke me. He thought she was yelling at me, not him. He didn't understand, and I thank God for that small mercy. I knelt down, pulling him into my arms. "No, buddy, sometimes people are mean because they don't like themselves. It's not about us, it's about them." His tears soaked into my shirt, his little hands clutching desperately at me like I was the only solid thing left in the world, and maybe I was. That was just the rehearsal. 2 days later, Vanessa had her wedding. Mikey stayed home with a babysitter. He thought the rehearsal was the wedding, and I didn't have the heart to tell him otherwise. I showed up alone, ready to let her have her big day without drama. I told myself I'd keep my mouth shut, smile for the cameras, and then leave quietly. But when it came time for dinner, I stood up. I tapped my glass, the sound echoing through the hall. Vanessa froze, her smile tightening. She mouthed the words, "Thank you for not bringing him." I smiled back, but not for the reason she thought. Clearing my throat, I began. "As you can see, I am here tonight without my wonderful son, Mikey. Many of you didn't want him here, but he still wanted to say something." The room went silent. I pulled out my phone and pressed play. A recording of Mikey's voice filled the reception hall. His sweet, slightly slurred speech rang out, echoing off the chandeliers. "Congratulations, Vanessa and Mr. Husband. I'm so happy for you. I hope you dance and eat cake and smile forever. I love you." The sound of his little voice broke me. Tears spilled down my cheeks before I could stop them. Around the room, others were crying too, except Vanessa. Her face twisted in fury, her jaw clenched so tight I thought her teeth might crack. I raised my glass to family. The guests cheered, though the air was thick with awkward tension. Vanessa's eyes burned into me, rage shimmering just beneath her skin, but she clinked her glass anyway, pretending to play along. I thought that was the end of it. But I was wrong. The next morning, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find two strangers standing there, one holding a clipboard, the other wearing the serious, detached look of authority. "Child Protective Services, we need to speak with you about your son." My stomach dropped so fast it felt like I was falling. They pushed inside without waiting, their pens scratching across paper as they cataloged my home like it was a crime scene. The locks on my cupboards noted. The plastic covering on my furniture noted. Mikey's mattress on the floor noted. I tried to explain. "He has autism, these are accommodations, the locks are for safety, the mattress helps with overstimulation." One of them muttered under her breath, "That's what they'll say." And then she said the words that nearly destroyed me. "We're placing him in emergency removal, effective immediately." I felt the blood drain from my face. "No, please, no, you don't understand. He needs me, he needs this home." But they didn't care. Within minutes, they were preparing to take Mikey away from me. And in that moment, as the walls of my world came crashing down, a single terrible truth burned in my chest. This wasn't random, this wasn't a coincidence. Vanessa did this, and she had no idea what she had just started. When CPS slammed the door on my life that morning, I couldn't stop shaking. My hands, my legs, even my voice, it all betrayed me. But if I was honest, the cracks in this family story had started long before that knock at the door. Because Vanessa, she wasn't just cruel in that one moment at the rehearsal. She had been planting seeds for years. Seeds of favoritism, lies, whispers behind closed doors, and little cruelties that no one ever wanted to acknowledge. And now those seeds had grown into a monster. And I think back, I can almost pinpoint the first time I realized something was wrong with how my aunt raised Vanessa. I must have been 12. It was Christmas at Grandma's house. The smell of cinnamon and pine needles filled the air. Everyone was crowded into the living room, laughter spilling from every corner. The kids tore into their presents like a pack of wild animals. Everyone except me. Because I'd saved mine for last, I was the kind of kid who wanted to savor the moment. When it was finally my turn, Grandma handed me a carefully wrapped box. My heart raced as I tore the paper, only to reveal a book, a dictionary to be exact. Laughter broke out, so you can finally win Scrabble, someone joked. But I remember looking over at Vanessa, who was only a year older than me, holding up the brand new she'd been given. It's not fair, I muttered, not meaning for anyone to hear. But Vanessa did. She leaned in close, smirking. Some people just deserve better gifts. And the thing was, her parents let her say things like that. They let her act superior, entitled, untouchable. It wasn't just gifts, it was everything. She was allowed to talk back to teachers while I got grounded for rolling my eyes. She was allowed to slam doors, curse, throw tantrums. I had to set a good example. And as the years went on, it only got worse. Vanessa grew into the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. She played piano, she was a prodigy. She got a B in math, the teacher was clearly biased. She screamed at her mom in front of the whole family, she's just passionate, that's all. Meanwhile, the rest of us were held to impossible standards. I still remember the day I got accepted into my first choice college. My parents were thrilled, hugging me like I'd just won the lottery. But at dinner that night, when the announcement was made, Aunt Vanessa's mom barely looked up from her glass of wine. That's nice, she said flatly, but Vanessa's going to law school. She wasn't, by the way, she'd barely managed to scrape by in her undergrad. But to them, reality didn't matter. All that mattered was protecting Vanessa's image. And anyone who got in her way, well, they were disposable. When Mikey was born, I thought things might change. I thought maybe the family would soften, maybe they'd show compassion. But instead, Vanessa found a new angle. First, she doted on him, pretended to adore him. She'd post photos of herself holding him at family gatherings, captioning them, "Love my little cousin." But the second his autism diagnosis came in, everything changed. I could see it in her eyes, the pity, the disgust she didn't bother to hide. She'd make comments in front of relatives, subtle digs dressed up as concern. Don't you think it's selfish to bring him to big events? He's just going to get overstimulated. Maybe he needs a special school, one where the parents don't coddle them so much. It was always concern, always wrapped in faux sympathy. And her parents backed her every time. He's a lot for you to handle, Aunt would say. Maybe it's best you keep him home more often. But the truth was, they weren't concerned about Mikey, they were embarrassed. And Vanessa, she thrived on that embarrassment. She wore it like a crown, using it to set herself above me. But when Vanessa screeched at me in front of the entire church, it wasn't a sudden outburst. It was years of resentment finally spilling out. She wanted me to leave Mikey behind, to hide him away so her perfect day wouldn't be touched by imperfection, and when I didn't, she decided to humiliate us publicly. What she didn't expect was how Mikey's recorded message would turn the tables at the reception, how that little voice note would make people cry, how it would pierce through their defenses in a way my words never could. And that's why she called CPS. Not because she cared about Mikey's well-being, but because she cared about revenge. Vanessa wasn't just a bully, she was a master manipulator. She had secrets, dark ones, and I'd kept my mouth shut for years because family loyalty had always been drilled into me. But now, as I watched CPS write down every detail of my home like it was a crime scene, those secrets came rushing back. Like the time I caught Vanessa sneaking vodka from her parents' cabinet at 15, then driving her mom's car with her friends late at night. I told Aunt, desperate to keep her safe, but instead of thanking me, she hissed, "Don't you dare spread lies about my daughter." Or the time Vanessa plagiarized an entire paper in college, got caught, and somehow her professor mysteriously changed his mind after a long phone call with Aunt. It was always the same story. Vanessa messed up and everyone else paid the price to cover it. So why should I have been surprised when she went after me and Mikey? But here's the part that still makes my chest ache. It wasn't just Vanessa. It was the silence of everyone else. My mom, bless her, always defended me. She adored Mikey, did everything she could to support us. But the rest of the family, they fell into one of two camps, those who enabled Vanessa and those who stayed silent out of fear. I'll never forget one Thanksgiving where Mikey accidentally knocked over a bowl of mashed potatoes. He flapped his hands, overwhelmed by the noise and mess. My uncle shook his head, muttering, "That boy, a menace." And Vanessa, she smirked, "See, this is what I'm talking about, you let him run wild." I wanted to scream, to defend my son in front of everyone, but my voice caught in my throat because deep down I already knew what they thought. They thought Mikey was broken and that I was weak for not fixing him. So when CPS showed up, it wasn't just Vanessa's voice on the other end of that phone. It was years of whispers, years of judgments, years of little digs and lies building into a narrative. That boy doesn't belong. His father can't handle him. It was Vanessa's weapon of choice, family gossip sharpened into a blade. And now she'd finally stabbed deep enough to draw blood. The night CPS took Mikey, I sat alone in his room. His toys were scattered across the floor. His weighted blanket lay crumpled at the foot of his mattress. The smell of his lavender bubble bath still lingered faintly in the air. But he wasn't there. And the silence broke me in a way I can't describe. I pressed my face into his pillow, still warm from the night before, and I promised myself something through my tears. I would fight for him. I would bring him home. And I would make sure Vanessa never got the chance to hurt us again. As I wiped my eyes, my phone buzzed. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Check your email, you need to see this." Confused, I opened my inbox. There it was, a video attachment. My hands shook as I clicked play. It was footage from Vanessa's wedding reception, footage of me giving my toast, playing Mikey's recording. But then it caught something else. Vanessa leaning close to a group of guests, her face twisted with rage, her lips moving furiously, and then she pulled out her phone, showed them something, they nodded, she hit dial. The timestamp read 9:47 p.m. CPS records said the call came in at 9:52 p.m. 5 minutes later, I froze, my stomach churned, the proof was right there. But the question that haunted me was this: who recorded this? And why were they sending it to me now? The video shook me to my core. I watched it 3 times in a row, my hands trembling so badly I could barely hold the phone. Each time my chest tightened more, like a vice was clamping down on me. Vanessa's face was burned into the screen, twisted, angry, whispering venom into her friend's ears before pulling out her phone, stabbing at the screen and showing it to someone. The camera caught the nodding, the encouragement, the moment she pressed call. The timestamp 9:47 p.m. The CPS call 9:52 p.m. It wasn't speculation anymore, it wasn't paranoia. She did it? Oh. But the bigger question, not at me, who sent me this? My phone buzzed again, a text. I'm sorry about all of this, I tried to stop her. I stared at the message, my pulse hammering. My thumbs hovered over the screen before I finally typed. Who is this? A pause, then. Thomas, Vanessa's husband. I blinked stunned, the same man who had just married her, the same man who'd clinked glasses at her side less than 48 hours ago. Why would he betray her? Why now? Why are you helping me? I typed back. His reply came a minute later, the typing dots taunting me. Because what she's doing is wrong. She's obsessed with making you pay. She even convinced one of her bridesmaids to lie to CPS. My stomach lurched, bridesmaids lying, Vanessa recruiting others. This wasn't just one phone call, it was a campaign. The next morning, I sat across from Elizabeth, the lawyer I'd found through a parent support group. Her office smelled faintly of coffee and printer ink, the walls lined with children's drawings, gifts from clients who'd once been terrified parents like me. I showed her the video. Elizabeth leaned forward, eyes narrowing as she watched. She didn't even blink when Vanessa pulled out her phone in the footage. This is gold, she said flatly. Direct evidence of malice. If we can tie that call to her number, it's over. My throat tightened, so we can fight this. Elizabeth's pen scratched across her notepad. Yes, but we need more than just this. CPS will hold a hearing in 72 hours. That's your window. Gather everything: medical records, therapy notes, IEPs, character references. The more proof we have, the harder it'll be for them to buy Vanessa's lies. Her calm confidence steadied me, but only slightly, because every second without Mikey felt like a knife twisting deeper. The next day, CPS granted me a supervised visit. The waiting room smelled of disinfectant and despair. Posters on the walls with cheerful slogans, every child deserves a safe home, felt cruelly ironic. When Mikey walked in, my heart nearly exploded. He looked small, exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, but when he saw me, his whole face lit up. Daddy, he bolted across the room and launched himself into my arms. I held him so tight I thought I might never let go. His little body trembled with relief, and I whispered into his hair, I missed you, buddy. I'm here. I'm always here. The caseworker, Jordan, sat in the corner scribbling notes, his face unreadable. Mikey started rambling, telling me about the strange house and the lady who cut sandwiches wrong. My heart cracked with every word. He didn't understand why he was home. When the visit ended, Mikey clung to me, sobbing, I want to go home. I want my daddy. It took 2 staff members to gently pry him off me. His screams echoed down the hallway until I couldn't hear them anymore. I collapsed into a chair, shaking, tears running hot down my face, and all I could think was, Vanessa did this. She made my baby suffer. That night, my mom called. Her voice was tight with anger. I just spoke to Aunt, she said. Vanessa's telling everyone that Mikey had a meltdown at the rehearsal, that you did nothing to control him. She's saying you're unfit to handle him. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles went white. That's a lie. He was silent the whole time until she screamed at him. I know, Mom said, but she's twisting the story. She's got people believing her. As if on cue, another buzz hit my phone, a Facebook message from Thomas. I had nothing to do with this, I'm sorry. I stared at the screen, torn. Did I believe him? Could I trust him, or was this just another trap? I broke Elizabeth's rule. I called Vanessa. To my shock, she answered, What do you want? Her voice was ice. I want to know why you're trying to take my son away from me, I said, my voice shaking with barely contained rage. She scoffed, I'm not doing anything except expressing legitimate concerns. Mikey needs professional help, not just you making excuses. He has professional help, I snapped. He has doctors, therapists. And he still can't behave properly in public, she interrupted. The way he acted at my rehearsal proves you can't handle him. My head spun, he was quiet until you screamed at him. That's not how I remember it, she said smugly, and neither do most of the guests. That's when it hit me, she was getting other people to back her lies. My chest tightened with fury. You're destroying your own family, Vanessa, you'll regret this. She laughed coldly, no cousin, you'll regret it. I hung up before I could say something that would damn me, but her words echoed in my head like a curse. 72 hours later, the hearing came. The courtroom smelled faintly of old wood and dust. The judge, an older man named Williams, sat with his glasses perched low on his nose. Elizabeth presented everything: Mikey's medical records, letters from his developmental pediatrician, testimony from his school principal, character references from my neighbor. When Vanessa took the stand, she played her part perfectly, crocodile tears shimmering in her eyes. I've been concerned about my cousin's ability to parent for years. I only called CPS because I truly feared for Mikey's safety. Elizabeth's cross-examination cut like a blade. Isn't it true you called CPS less than 24 hours after my client played a recording of his son at your wedding reception? Vanessa shifted uncomfortably. That's coincidental. And isn't it also true that you specifically excluded Mikey from your wedding because of his autism? It was an adult-only wedding. Elizabeth raised her brow. An adult-only wedding with a flower girl, a ring bearer, and 3 other children present. The courtroom murmured. Vanessa flushed red. She faltered, stumbled, but still clung to her lies. The judge called a recess. I sat outside the courtroom, my hands shaking, heart pounding in my throat. Elizabeth leaned close. We've got her on the ropes, but don't celebrate yet. She's vindictive. This won't stop here. When Judge Williams returned, his face was unreadable. Based on the evidence presented, he said slowly, I see no indication of neglect or harm in Mr. Williams' parenting. In fact, quite the opposite. Therefore, I am dismissing the emergency removal order. Relief flooded me so hard I nearly collapsed. But then he added, however, I am ordering a follow-up home visit with a developmental specialist to ensure all accommodations are appropriate. Until then, custody will be transferred to the child's grandmother, with unlimited visitation for the father. It wasn't complete victory, but it was close. As I left the courthouse, Vanessa brushed past me, her face twisted with fury. This isn't over, she hissed. Elizabeth put a hand on my shoulder, raising her voice just enough for Vanessa to hear. Actually, I think it is, and if you make one more false report, we'll pursue harassment charges. But that night, as I lay awake listening to the empty silence of my house, my phone buzzed with a new message. From Thomas. She's planning something else, watch your back. The judge's gavel may have dismissed the emergency removal order, but Vanessa's words echoed in my head like poison. This isn't over. And then there was Thomas's text. She's planning something else, watch your back. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound in the house felt amplified, the hum of the fridge, the creak of the floorboards, the ticking of the old clock on the wall. My stomach twisted with dread. What else could she do? She'd already humiliated me in front of the family. She'd already tried to take my son, what was left. The answer came sooner than I expected. Doctor arrived the next afternoon. Unlike the first CPS worker, she radiated calm authority. She was older, seasoned, with gentle eyes that immediately softened when she knelt to Mikey's level. Hi, Mikey, I'm Doctor. Can you show me your favorite toy? Mikey blinked, then proudly grabbed his squish, the blue octopus he carried everywhere. He pressed it into her hands, his way of saying he trusted her. For 2 hours, she walked through the house. She noted the sensory corner I'd set up with bean bags and noise-canceling headphones. She examined the locks on the cupboards, the mattress on the floor, the visual schedule pinned to the fridge. You've created a very supportive environment, she told me afterward. I'll be writing a positive report. I felt hope bloom in my chest for the first time in days. Maybe this nightmare really was ending. That night, my phone buzzed again. It was Jordan, the CPS caseworker. His voice sounded tired, almost apologetic. Mr. Williams, I wanted to let you know we've received another report. My blood ran cold. From who? He hesitated, an anonymous caller, but the claims, they allege you've been medicating your son unnecessarily to keep him under control. That's a lie, I nearly shouted. His medication is prescribed by doctor, it's documented, you have the records. I know, Jordan said gently. Given doctor's assessment and the judge's ruling, we're not taking action, but I wanted you to be aware someone is escalating. I hung up shaking. Vanessa wasn't just relentless, she was desperate. And desperate people are dangerous. 2 nights later, the doorbell rang just as I was helping Mikey into his dinosaur pajamas. Through the peephole, my stomach dropped. Vanessa. For a moment, I considered ignoring it, but then I realized maybe this was my chance to end things once and for all. I opened the door, blocking her from entering. What do you want? Her makeup was minimal, her hair messy, her eyes rimmed red. She looked less like the perfect bride from her wedding day and more like someone unraveling. I need to talk to you, she said. I thrust the cease and desist letter Elizabeth had drafted into her hands. Here's all you're getting from me. You tried to take my son away with lies. You're lucky this is just a letter. Her face hardened. You humiliated me in front of everyone I know. You humiliated yourself when you screamed at a disabled child, I snapped. We stared at each other, the air between us thick with years of resentment. Then to my shock, her voice cracked. Thomas left me. What? 3 days ago, he said he couldn't be with someone who would do what I did to Mikey. Her eyes welled with tears. You don't understand, you ruined everything. Part of me felt vindicated, but another part saw the cracks, her world crumbling, her mask slipping. That's between you and Thomas, I said coldly. It has nothing to do with me or my son. Her eyes narrowed. He was helping you, wasn't he? That video, it had to be him. I kept my face neutral. Doesn't matter who sent it, what matters is you were caught. Her lips curled. You think you've won? You think people are on your side now? I've been talking to other family members. They know the truth. You're using Mikey's condition for attention. My fist clenched to get off my property. Before she could retort, a small voice floated down the hall. Daddy, I'm all clean now. Mikey stood there, wet hair sticking up, pajamas hanging loose. When he saw Vanessa, his body stiffened. His hands started flapping, his voice a whisper, it's the mean lady. Vanessa froze, staring at him like she was seeing him for the first time. And then Mikey did something I never expected. He stepped forward, his voice shook, but his words came out clear. You were mean to my daddy at the fancy party, you yelled and made people sad. Vanessa's mouth opened, but no sound came. Mikey's hands flapped harder, his eyes brimming with tears. I didn't do anything bad, I was quiet like Daddy said, but you were loud and scary. My teacher says you shouldn't be mean to people. I froze, pride and heartbreak crashed over me at once. My son, my sweet, anxious, easily overwhelmed son, was standing up for himself. Vanessa blinked rapidly, her mask slipping. For a split second, I saw guilt flicker across her face, but then she turned, spun on her heel, and walked away without another word. The door slammed shut behind her. I dropped to my knees, pulling Mikey into my arms. Buddy, that was so brave, I'm so proud of you. But as I tucked him into bed that night, my chest ached with worry. Thomas's warning replayed in my head, she's planning something else. The next morning, Jordan asked to meet me off the record. We sat in a quiet coffee shop, the smell of roasted beans heavy in the air. I shouldn't be telling you this, he said, leaning in, but yesterday we got another report, not from Vanessa, from someone named Charles Johnson. My blood went cold. That's her father, my uncle. Jordan nodded grimly. The allegations were nearly identical to hers, too similar to be coincidence. Rage burned in my chest. Vanessa wasn't acting alone anymore, she had backup. I called Elizabeth immediately. When I told her, she didn't sound surprised. This is actually good, she said. We can demonstrate a pattern of coordinated harassment. I'll amend the cease and desist to include her immediate family. But while Elizabeth handled the legal side, my mom was already planning her own move. This ends now, she told me. I'm calling a family meeting. Everyone's going to hear the truth. I wanted to argue to protect her from the storm I knew would follow, but I saw the fire in her eyes and realized she wouldn't be stopped. That Sunday, the house was packed. Aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't seen in years all crammed into my mom's living room, the air buzzed with tension. Vanessa walked in flanked by her parents. Her chin was high, her smirk firmly in place, but when she saw how many relatives had shown up, her confidence flickered. Mom wasted no time. She stood at the front of the room, her voice steady. I called you all here because there's been a campaign of harassment against my son and grandson, and it's coming from inside's family. Gasps rippled through the room. Mom laid it all out, the wedding humiliation, the CPS calls, the false accusations. She even passed around doctor's report and the cease and desist letter. When she finished, she looked directly at Uncle Charles. You made a false report about my grandson, don't deny it. His face turned crimson. I was concerned. You've seen Mikey exactly twice in 3 years, Mom cut in. Don't you dare pretend this was about concern. The room buzzed with whispers, eyes darting between us and Vanessa's side of the family. And then someone else spoke. One of Vanessa's bridesmaids cleared her throat, refusing to meet Vanessa's glare. He's right, Mikey wasn't disruptive at the rehearsal. He was just sitting there smiling. Vanessa was the one who flipped out. A stunned silence fell over the room. Vanessa's face contorted with rage. You traitor after everything I did for you. Enough. The voice came from the doorway. Thomas? He stepped inside, his expression hard, his eyes locked on Vanessa. Enough lies, Vanessa. I've watched you tear this family apart. First the wedding, then convincing Jenna to lie to CPS, now dragging your father into this. Stop. The room exploded into chaos, shouts, gasps, murmurs. Vanessa's mask crumbled as relatives turned against her one by one, voicing years of bottled resentment. And I thought maybe, just maybe, this nightmare was finally ending. Until Thomas turned to me, his voice low, his words cutting through the noise like a blade. You need to know something, he said. She's not finished, she's planning something worse than CPS. My stomach dropped. Worse, what do you mean? He glanced nervously around the room, lowering his voice to a whisper only I could hear. She told me she's going to make sure you lose Mikey permanently. Thomas's words hit me like a sledgehammer. She's going to make sure you lose Mikey permanently. The living room was still buzzing with voices, family members arguing, defending, condemning, but all I could hear was the pounding of my own heart. Permanently? That word echoed in my skull like a war drum. What do you mean? I whispered, my throat dry. Thomas shook his head, glancing around nervously. Not here, not now, but she's dangerous, more dangerous than you think. Before I could press him, Vanessa stormed out, her parents trailing behind her, their faces twisted with humiliation. The room slowly quieted, but the damage was done. A line had been drawn, and I knew deep in my gut that Thomas was exaggerating. The next 48 hours felt like walking across thin ice. I barely slept, every creak of the house made me jump. I kept double-checking the locks, checking Mikey's room to make sure he was safe. Then it happened. It was a Thursday evening. I had just tucked Mikey into bed, his favorite dinosaur pajamas still warm from the dryer. He clutched Squish, his blue octopus, against his chest. I kissed his forehead, whispering, "Good night, buddy, I love you." The house was quiet, the kind of silence you almost trust until it shatters. At 11:17 p.m., I woke to the sound of shattering glass. My body jolted upright, my heart raced. I ran to Mikey's room, he was still asleep, his little body rising and falling. Relief washed over me for a split second before I smelled it. Gasoline. The acrid, unmistakable scent burned my nostrils, my stomach dropped. I ran downstairs and froze. The living room window was shattered, a glass bottle lay on the floor, flames licking the carpet, the curtains had already caught fire. Someone had thrown a Molotov cocktail into my home. Adrenaline surged through me, I grabbed the fire extinguisher from the kitchen, spraying foam across the flames, coughing as smoke filled my lungs. My eyes burned, my chest screamed for air. I put out most of the fire, but the smoke was too thick. I stumbled back upstairs, coughing violently, swooping Mikey into my arms. He woke with a cry, panicked. Daddy, what's happening? Hold on to me, buddy, don't let go. I wrapped him in his weighted blanket, shielding his face from the smoke, and rushed down the hallway. Every second felt like eternity. My chest burned, my head spun, but I forced myself through the haze. I kicked open the back door, stumbling into the cold night air. Mikey clung to me, coughing, his little body shaking. The neighbor's porch lights flicked on, shouts filled the air, someone called 911. As I collapsed onto the grass, holding my terrified son, I realized what Thomas had meant. Vanessa hadn't just wanted CPS to take Mikey, she wanted to destroy me completely. The paramedics rushed us to the ER, the sharp scent of antiseptic hit me as soon as we entered. Bright lights, the beeping of machines, nurses shouting instructions. Mikey was wheezing, his chest rising too quickly. We need a pediatric oxygen mask, a nurse barked. They strapped one onto his tiny face, his wide eyes darting to me. I'm right here, buddy, I whispered, holding his hand tightly. His skin felt clammy, his little fingers twitching against mine. Doctors swarmed around us, words blurred together, smoke inhalation, possible bronchospasm, keep him stable. I sat beside him in the hospital bed, the sterile sheets crinkling under my arm. My clothes smelled like burnt fabric and gasoline. My skin stung where the smoke had seared it, but none of that mattered. All that mattered was Mikey's fragile chest rising and falling. While Mikey was being monitored, a detective came to speak with me. He was tall, gray-haired, with a no-nonsense expression. Mr. Williams, we found remnants of accelerant in your living room. This was intentional. Do you have any idea who might want to harm you? My throat tightened, I wanted to shout Vanessa's name, but without proof it would sound like paranoia. Till I said it, my cousin Vanessa, she called CPS on me, made false reports, now this, she's escalating. The detective scribbled notes, his pen scratching loudly in the sterile silence. We'll look into it, but these things take time. In the meantime, do you have somewhere safe to stay? I thought of my mom, her steady presence, her fierce protection of Mikey. Yes, we'll go to my mother. The detective nodded, good, because whoever did this, they're not finished. The next 24 hours were a blur of hospital corridors and restless packing. The constant beeping of monitors drilled into my skull. I barely ate, I barely breathed. Finally, the pediatrician came in, her expression soft. Mikey's lungs are irritated, but there's no permanent damage. He's stable now. He'll need rest, inhalers for a few days, but he's lucky. Lucky, that word hit me hard. Lucky that he hadn't died. Lucky that we hadn't been trapped upstairs. Lucky that the flames hadn't spread faster. I gripped Mikey's hand as tears filled my eyes. He was asleep again, his chest rising evenly, Squish tucked tightly against his side. Lucky, but not safe. When the news of the fire spread, the family split even further. Some called, horrified, offering support, others stayed silent. But Vanessa, not a word. Instead, whispers reached me through cousins and mutual friends. Vanessa was spinning the story again, claiming I staged the fire for sympathy, that I was unstable, desperate for attention. It made my blood boil, my house had nearly burned down, my son could have died, and she was still twisting the knife. I knew then she wasn't going to stop until she had destroyed me. But amidst the chaos, someone else stepped in. Dr. Mikey's developmental pediatrician came to the hospital personally. Her presence was like a shield. She stormed into the hospital room, her white coat billowing. This is outrageous, she said. First CPS, now this, you've been targeted and I'm not staying silent. She handed me a thick folder. Here are all of Mikey's records. Therapy notes, prescriptions, my professional recommendations. If Vanessa or anyone tries again, this proves everything you've done has been appropriate. Her eyes softened as she looked at Mikey. You're a good father, don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Her words broke me. For the first time in days, I felt seen. 2 nights later, back at my mom's house, I got another text from Thomas. Can we meet? I need to tell you something in person. Every instinct told me to be cautious, but something in his tone, the desperation, made me agree. We met at a quiet diner off the highway. The place smelled of fried food and stale coffee. My nerves buzzed as I slid into the booth across from him. He looked wrecked, his eyes bloodshot, his hands trembling as he wrapped them around a chipped mug of coffee. She's losing it, he said, his voice low. I tried to stop her, but Vanessa, she's gone too far. What do you mean? I demanded. He leaned forward, his whisper barely audible. She wasn't alone that night. When your house caught fire, she had help. My chest tightened. What are you saying? His eyes locked onto mine, haunted. I drove her there. The words crashed into me like a freight train. You what? I hissed, my voice shaking with fury. He buried his face in his hands. I didn't know she'd go through with it. She told me she just wanted to scare you. I didn't know she had a bottle of gasoline in her bag until she lit it. By then, it was too late. The diner's hum seemed to fade, the world narrowing down to those words. Thomas, the man who'd sent me proof, the man who'd warned me, the man who said he was on my side. He had been there, he had driven her. My chair scraped against the floor as I stood, shaking with rage. You put my son's life in danger, you were part of this. Thomas looked up, tears spilling down his face. I'm sorry, I swear, I didn't know she'd go that far, I wanted to make it right. The weight of his words crushed me. 'Cause now I knew the truth, Vanessa wasn't just cruel, she was reckless, dangerous, capable of anything. And the man sitting across from me, the only ally I thought I had left, wasn't innocent. He was complicit. And if Vanessa had already tried fire, what would she do next? Thomas's words replayed in my head like a broken record. I drove her there. I couldn't breathe, my chest tightened as if the air had been sucked out of the diner. The clanging of plates, the low hum of conversation around us, they all blurred in static. You helped her, my voice was low but sharp enough to cut glass. Thomas's eyes brimmed with tears. I didn't know, I swear, I didn't know she was going to throw that bottle. She told me it was just to scare you, just to send a message. Scare me, I hissed, my son could have died. Heads turned from nearby tables, but I didn't care. Rage pulsed through me. You don't understand what she's like, he pleaded, leaning forward. She's manipulative, she makes you think you don't have a choice. She threatened me too. If I didn't drive her, she said she'd tell people I was abusive, that I'd hit her. None of it's true, but I panicked, I gave in. Sat back shaking, he was crying now, his hands trembling, but sympathy didn't come, not yet, because every image of that fire replayed in my mind, the smoke, Mikey's cries, the heat clawing at our skin. You drove her to my house with gasoline, that's not a mistake, Thomas, that's attempted murder. Thomas lowered his voice, desperate. I can testify, I can give you everything, proof, dates, conversations, even texts. She bragged about it after, said she'd finally taught you a lesson. He shoved his phone across the table, his hands shook as I scrolled. Dozens of messages, Vanessa's number, her words. He'll regret ever embarrassing me. Tonight's the night, he's too smug, needs to be knocked down. Bring the car around back, I'll handle the rest. My stomach churned, my fingers went numb. This was it, the smoking gun. But it also meant something else. If Vanessa could escalate from false reports to arson, where did it end? That night, I sat in my mom's kitchen, the smell of chamomile tea filling the air, steam curling from the mug she'd placed in front of me. She watched me closely as I explained everything Thomas had confessed. When I finished, her face was pale but her jaw was firm. We go to the police tonight. I nodded slowly, but doubt not at me. If I turned Thomas in, he might take Vanessa down with him, but he was still family by marriage. Was it my responsibility to protect the family from more scandal or to protect Mikey from future harm? There was no middle ground. And then there was Mikey himself, asleep in the next room. His breath whistled softly, his chest rising and falling under his weighted blanket. He had no idea how close he'd come to never waking up again. The choice was obvious. Loyalty to family meant nothing compared to loyalty to my son. Still, my stomach twisted as I dialed Elizabeth, my lawyer. When Elizabeth answered, I didn't waste time. I told her everything, the diner, the text, the confession. Her voice was calm, controlled, but I could hear the edge of urgency. This changes everything, she said. If you take this to the police, Vanessa won't just be facing harassment charges anymore. We're talking arson, attempted endangerment, possibly attempted manslaughter given Mikey's presence. My blood ran cold at the word manslaughter. But listen carefully, she added. If Thomas cooperates, he could get a plea deal in exchange for testifying against her. That could speed things up, but it also means we'll have to walk a fine line. Too much pressure, and he might back out. I gripped the phone. I don't care what deal he gets, as long as she never comes near Mikey again. Elizabeth's side crackled through the line. Then get me everything. The texts, the call logs, the details. Tomorrow morning we'll take it to the detectives. But be careful, if Vanessa suspects Thomas is talking, she could retaliate. The next morning I drove Mikey to school. The air smelled faintly of rain, the asphalt glistening under a gray sky. As he hopped out of the car, clutching Squish in one hand and his lunchbox in the other, he looked back at me. Daddy, you'll be here when school over, right? Of course, buddy, I said, forcing a smile, always. His trust broke me, because in that moment I wasn't sure what would happen in the hours ahead. I drove straight to the police station with Elizabeth by my side. The detective from the hospital, the gray-haired one, met us in a small office that smelled of coffee and tired paperwork. When I laid Thomas's phone on the table, showing the texts, his expression hardened. This is serious, he said. We'll bring him in. With his cooperation, we can issue a warrant for Vanessa. Cold shiver ran down my spine. This was real now. There was no going back. By that evening, the family had heard. News travels fast in families like mine, faster than wildfire. Half of them called to curse Vanessa to express their horror. The other half stayed silent or worse, defended her. She wouldn't do something like that, Aunt hissed over the phone. You're trying to ruin her life. Her life, I snapped. She tried to burn down my house while my son was asleep inside. Hung up on me. That was the moment I realized family loyalty had fractured completely. There was no patching this up. That night, my phone buzzed. Tom's again. I told the police everything. I'm done covering for her. I'll testify. Relief washed over me, but so did fear, because if he had flipped on Vanessa, then she would know. And a woman who had already escalated to arson wouldn't take betrayal lightly. The next day, doctor visited again. She brought cookies for Mikey, sat with him while he lined up his toy dinosaurs, her presence calm and steady. When he ran off to play, she turned to me. You need to protect yourself too. Stress like this, it eats you alive, and Mikey will feel it. You can't crumble, not now. Her words sank deep. She was right. I'd been running on fumes, surviving moment to moment, but I had to be stronger for Mikey. Till that night, sleep evaded me. Every creak, every shadow outside the window made me jump. Because I knew, with terrifying certainty, Vanessa wasn't going to fade quietly into the background. 3 days later, there was another knock at my door. My heart sobbed. When I opened it, my jaw dropped. Vanessa. But this time she wasn't smirking, she wasn't sneering, she wasn't even angry. She was crying. Mascara streaked down her face. Her hands shook as she clutched something close to her chest, a folded piece of paper. I need to talk, she whispered. I blocked the doorway. I don't want to hear another word from you. Her voice cracked. Please, just listen. I didn't mean for it to go this far. She broke off sobbing. I lost everything, Thomas, my reputation, my family. I can't sleep, I can't eat. I see Mikey's face every time I close my eyes. For a moment against my will, I saw her not as the villain, but as a broken, desperate woman spiraling out of control. And then she shoved the paper toward me. I wrote a statement, a confession, I'll admit everything, just don't let them lock me up. I froze, staring at her. Was this real, a trap, a genuine surrender? Behind me, Mikey's voice floated down the hall. Daddy, who's at the door? Vanessa's tear-streaked eyes snapped toward him, wide, raw. And that's when I saw it, not guilt, not remorse. But something else. Something darker. I yanked the door shut, heart racing, locking it tight. My hands shook as I clutched the paper she'd forced into my palm. I unfolded it with trembling fingers. The handwriting was messy, frantic. I'm sorry, I was jealous, I wanted to hurt you. I didn't mean to hurt Mikey, I'm losing my mind, please forgive me. But scrawled at the bottom in a jagged rush of ink were the words that made my blood run cold. If I can't have peace, none of you will. I dropped the paper like it was on fire. 'Cause suddenly I knew this wasn't a confession. It was a warning. And the storm wasn't over. It was just beginning. The paper lay on the kitchen table like a poisonous snake, its messy handwriting seared into my brain. If I can't have peace, none of you will. I couldn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room with every light on, staring at the letter, listening to Mikey's soft breathing through the baby monitor I still used, even though he was 7. My mind churned with questions. Was this her breaking point, a confession of guilt, or a threat of what was coming next? By dawn, my decision was made. This wasn't about family loyalty anymore, this was about survival. At 9 a.m., Elizabeth met me at the police station. I slid the crumpled confession across the table to the detective. He read it once, then again, his jaw tightening. This isn't just a statement, he said grimly. This is evidence of intent to cause harm. Elizabeth nodded sharply. Combined with the arson evidence and Thomas's testimony, this should be enough to push for charges. We can argue she's a danger to herself and others. The detective's pen scratched across his pad. We'll issue a warrant, but Mr. Williams, he met my eyes. Until we have her in custody, you need to be vigilant, don't let your guard down. I swallowed hard, vigilant. That meant double locks, checking the windows twice, sleeping with my phone in my hand. It meant living like prey in my own home. But if that was the cost of keeping Mikey safe, I'd pay it. 2 days later, the call came. We've got her, the detective said. Relief washed over me like cool water after weeks in fire. But it wasn't the kind of arrest I'd imagined. Vanessa hadn't gone down screaming or denying. According to the officer, she'd broken down sobbing the moment they knocked on her door. Still, the charges were heavy: arson, reckless endangerment, filing false reports. And suddenly, the golden girl of the family wasn't untouchable anymore. When the case went public, the family split for good. Half of them around me, horrified by what Vanessa had done. They brought casseroles, offered to babysit Mikey, showed up at court dates. The other half whispered behind closed doors, insisting she was sick and just needed help. Aunt begged the judge for mercy, her voice cracking as she called Vanessa a misunderstood girl. But as I sat there, listening to Doctor testify about Mikey's care, listening to Thomas admit under oath that he had driven Vanessa the night of the fire, listening to the detective detail the gasoline residue and shattered glass, mercy was the last thing on my mind. All I cared about was justice. When the judge finally ordered Vanessa into mandatory psychiatric treatment, followed by probation, I felt conflicted. Part of me wanted to see her locked away for years, but another part, the part holding Mikey's hand tightly as he fiddled with Squish, knew the cycle of cruelty had to end somewhere. Still, one truth remained: she would never again hold power over my son. The aftermath wasn't easy. Mikey struggled for weeks after the fire. Nightmares woke him up screaming, his little body shaking as he clung to me. He was terrified of loud noises, of sudden knocks at the door, of shadows on the wall. I put him in therapy with a child trauma specialist. The office smelled like crayons and Play-Doh decorated with posters of cartoon animals. Slowly, session by session, he began to open up. He drew pictures of the fire and the mean lady, but also of me holding his hand, keeping him safe. And for me, therapy was necessary too. For too long, I tried to be everything: protector, advocate, fighter, but the truth was I was breaking inside. The nights replayed in my head: Vanessa's scream in the church, Mikey sobbing in the CPS office, the crackling fire, the smell of gasoline. It wasn't weakness to admit I needed help, it was survival. Even now, months later, the family gatherings aren't the same. Some relatives avoid me entirely, too ashamed to face what they'd once agreed with. Others are overly kind, bringing gifts for Mikey, their voices too bright, too rehearsed. And then there are those who've grown closer, like Aunt Maria, whose daughter has Down syndrome. She's become one of our biggest allies, always inviting Mikey for, teaching her kids to embrace his differences. The scar is permanent, but not all scars are ugly. Some remind you of what you survived. One evening, Mikey and I sat on the porch, the smell of cut grass in the air, fireflies blinking in the twilight. He leaned against me, Squish tucked under his arm. Daddy, he asked softly, is the mean lady gone forever? I swallowed the lump in my throat. Yes, buddy, she can't hurt us anymore. He was quiet for a moment, then whispered, good, because I want to be happy again. His words broke me open, because despite everything, the humiliation, the lies, the fire, he still believed happiness was possible. And maybe that was the greatest lesson of all. I used to believe family meant unconditional love, loyalty above all, but now I know better. Family isn't just blood. Family is who shows up when the world is burning. Family is who fights for you, not against you. Vanessa tried to take Mikey away. She tried to destroy me. Instead, she revealed who truly stood by our side. And now I want to ask you, what would you have done? If a family member turned against you, tried to ruin your life, even hurt your child, would you forgive them or cut them off forever? Let me know in the comments. And if this story gripped you, don't forget to subscribe, because the truth is, sometimes the darkest betrayals don't come from strangers. They come from family.